the impossible happened. Again, Donald J. Trump, defying all odds and predictions, reclaimed the presidency of the United States. His victory, a stunning rebuke to the political establishment, cemented his place as a political phenomenon unlike any other in modern American history. Trump's victory speech was a carefully crafted message of unity. Gone were the fiery attacks and divisive rhetoric that characterized his previous campaign. In their place was a call for healing and a promise to bring the country together. Only time would tell if he could bridge the chasm that had grown wider than ever during the bitter campaign. This historic win marked a remarkable comeback for the former president. He became the first to reclaim the White House after a previous defeat in over a century. At 78, he would also be the oldest president ever sworn into office. As the news of Trump's victory spread, celebrations erupted across the country. His supporters, many of whom had felt marginalized and ignored, saw in Trump a champion for their values. They had put their faith in him once again, and he had delivered. But the victory was not without its detractors. Across the country, and indeed the world, many watched with a mixture of disbelief and trepidation. The path to the White House, as always, ran through the battleground states. Trump's campaign strategists, learning from the narrow losses of 2020, had meticulously targeted key states that had flipped blue in the previous election. Pennsylvania, with its crucial 20 electoral votes, was a must-win. Trump poured resources into the state, holding numerous rallies and appealing directly to blue-collar workers who had felt left behind by the Democrats. His message of economic populism and promises to bring back manufacturing jobs resonated deeply in the state's struggling industrial heartland.
Michigan and Wisconsin, two other states that had narrowly eluded Trump in 2020, also swung back into his column. The Trump campaign's relentless focus on these states, combined with a ground game that outmatched the Democrats, proved to be decisive. The Democrats, for their part, had struggled to maintain their hold on these critical states. Their message, focused on issues such as healthcare and climate change, failed to resonate with many voters in these areas. The party's inability to connect with rural and working-class voters, a trend that had been evident for years, proved to be their undoing.
Trump's victory exposed the deep political and cultural divides that continue to define American society. While his supporters rejoiced, his opponents were left reeling, struggling to come to terms with the outcome. In cities and towns across the country, celebrations erupted as the news of Trump's victory spread. From small-town diners to bustling city streets, Trump supporters cheered, waved flags, and reveled in their candidate's triumph. For them, it was a victory for the forgotten man, a rejection of the political elite, and a chance to restore America to its former glory.
For every jubilant Trump supporter, there was a dismayed opponent struggling to comprehend how this could have happened. Many expressed fear and anxiety about the future, citing Trump's divisive rhetoric and controversial policies. Protests erupted in cities across the country, with demonstrators voicing their anger and frustration over the election results.
Social media, as it had throughout the campaign, became a battleground for both sides. Trump supporters took to Twitter and Facebook to celebrate their victory and mock their opponents. Meanwhile, Trump's critics used the platforms to express their outrage, despair, and fears for the future.
The world watched with fascination and apprehension as the United States chose Donald Trump as its leader. Reactions ranged from cautious congratulations to expressions of concern. Allies like the UK and Israel emphasized the importance of cooperation. Beneath pleasantries, uncertainty about Trump's impact on the global order was evident.
European leaders were more reserved. Angela Merkel stressed shared democratic values. Emmanuel Macron called for cooperation and multilateralism. Russia and China's reactions were more difficult to decipher. Putin expressed hope for improved relations. Xi Jinping urged the US to manage differences with China.
Section 5. The second act begins. Transitions and expectations. With the election behind him, Trump turned his attention to the task of assembling his administration and preparing for his second term. The transition period was marked by a flurry of activity as Trump and his team worked to fill key positions and set the agenda for the coming years.
One of the most closely watched aspects of the transition was the selection of Trump's cabinet. Would he opt for experienced hands from his first term, Or would he shake things up with new faces and fresh perspectives? The answer, as with many things Trump, was a mix of both.
Familiar faces like Mike Pompeo and Mike Pence returned to the fold, but there were also some surprising additions. Trump's decision to tap his daughter Ivanka Trump and son-in-law Jared Kushner for senior advisor roles raised eyebrows, with critics questioning their qualifications and experience.
As Trump settled into his second term, all eyes were on his policy agenda. Would he continue to pursue the populist, nationalist policies that had defined his first term? Or would he moderate his stance in an attempt to unite the country? The answer, once again, was far from clear.
Section 6. Beyond the presidency, key issues on the ballot. While the presidential election dominated the headlines, voters across the country also weighed in on a number of other important issues, including abortion rights, marijuana legalization, and health care. The issue of abortion, as always, proved to be one of the most contentious. In several states, voters were asked to decide on measures that would either restrict or protect abortion rights. The results were mixed, with some states voting to further limit access to abortion, while others affirmed their commitment to reproductive rights. Marijuana legalization was another hot-button issue on the ballot. Several states considered measures to either legalize recreational or medical marijuana, reflecting the growing national trend towards cannabis reform. The outcomes of these votes varied, with some states embracing legalization, while others opted to maintain the status quo. Healthcare, a perennial issue in American politics, also featured prominently in many state and local elections. Voters were asked to consider a range of proposals, from expanding Medicaid to implementing single-payer healthcare systems. The results of these votes highlighted the deep divisions that remain over how best to provide affordable, accessible healthcare to all Americans. Section 7. The Democrats regroup, reflecting on a bitter defeat. The Democrats, reeling from their second consecutive defeat to Donald Trump, faced a period of soul-searching and introspection. The party was deeply divided, with factions blaming each other for the loss and struggling to chart a path forward.
Some within the party argued that they had drifted too far to the left, alienating moderate and independent voters. They pointed to the party's embrace of progressive policies like Medicare for All and the Green New Deal as evidence that they had lost touch with the concerns of ordinary Americans.
Others countered that the party's problem was not its policies, but its messaging. They argued that the Democrats had failed to articulate a clear, compelling vision for the future and had allowed Trump to define the terms of the debate.
As the Democrats grappled with the fallout from the election, one thing was clear. They needed to find a way to bridge the divides within their own ranks and present a united front if they hoped to regain power.
Section 8. The final countdown. Inauguration Day approaches. Despite the ongoing political turmoil and the deep divisions within American society, the wheels of government continued to turn. As Inauguration Day approached, the country prepared for the peaceful transfer of power that is a hallmark of American democracy. Security was tight in Washington, D.C., as law enforcement agencies prepared for the possibility of protests and unrest. The events surrounding the January 6th Capitol riot were still fresh in everyone's minds, and authorities were determined to prevent a repeat of that chaos. On January 20th, 2025, under the watchful eyes of the world, Donald J. Trump took the oath of office for the second time. In his inaugural address, he struck a conciliatory tone, calling for unity and healing. But whether he could deliver on those promises remained to be seen. As Trump embarked on his second term, the nation held its breath. The stakes were higher than ever, both at home and abroad. The world was watching, waiting to see what the next 4 years would bring. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more trending news.